All right, so today I'm going to talk about how to make the shadows visible. And this is a continuation of my discussion in a previous video I posted about how to master the astral body. So why master the astral body, right? I explained that the astral body is the astral body in levels of energy underneath, right? Anything below peace and clarity. So anxiety, fear, any form of fear, right? That's the part of us that tries to go into activity to seek the essence of what we want outside of ourselves, right? So we feel anxious, so we're going to go self-soothe with some, food, drug, sex, experience, activity, right? And it's really essential that we aspire to this, the mastery of the astral body, because it is the biggest drainer of our life force. It's wanderings, it's going towards appetites, it's going towards instant gratification. It drains our life force. And in order to awaken, not only as the observer, not only as awareness, but as energy and as the physical form, we must learn how to modulate life force, how to retain and increase life force, because the nervous system can't handle the nuclear energy of God unless you start to build your energy within, right, and stop wasting it and dispersing it on mind wandering, right, and going into activities, allowing yourself to be moved from fear, right? That's a waste. Every time you take action from the assumption that I am separate from God, that I am not whole, every time you go into activity because you simply cannot feel your emotions, right? And I understand that that's a very difficult journey for a lot of people to be able to come back and be able to do that. That's something that I may have left out of my explanation on how to master the astral body, right? The reason why it goes into activity is very simple. Well, because it has momentum of doing this thing of seeking the essence of what we want outside of us. But also, right, if you simply learned how to feel the anxiety that triggers that body to go into activity, then that energy will just be reabsorbed back into you, the source, right? And will be repurposed as creative energy, as radiation energy, instead of energy that's literally leaking from you. So this is kind of related to the conversation I was having about the astral body. And so the reason why this video is how to make the shadows visible is that sometimes people think that they are moving from their heart when they're actually just moving from the astral body. So here's a rule of physics, and here's just like how life works, okay? And this is why I say all the time that the real shadow work is the light work. You can only observe something if you know yourself beyond it, if you know yourself beyond that level of energy, right? So if I have lived my whole life mired in guilt, mired in shame, the only way that I will be able to observe that, be able to see it clearly, is if I know myself beyond it. And you do not have to wait until some miraculous appointed time in your destiny where you finally have a spiritual realization of your true nature and you have a mystical experience. You don't need that. There's a science to this, right? This is my assumption anyway. This is my assumption that there is a science to this. And the way that you know yourself beyond a shadow is that you infuse more light into your experience, which is not only awareness, it's literally raising your energy, right? People talk about raising your vibration. What does that actually mean? I talk about this a lot, right? You have to be consciously aware of yourself as whole, consciously aware of your heart energy as being the center of yourself, right? Many philosophies and spiritual teachings explain that enlightenment has not really happened until the mind has sunk into the heart. So when you start to put attention on the heart, what happens is the more attention you put on your heart, the more a gravity begins to pull your attention. Instead of your attention going back up into the head, up into the head, up into the head, up into separation, it drops down into the heart. So, but see, there's other aspects of us, there's fragments of us that are stubbornly vibrating in low energy because perhaps we've experienced very intense impacts and traumas. And so these parts of us, like when we were 4 or 5 or 6 or 2 years old, right, our innocence left us, and what took over us was a strategy or a caged energy. That's one word I use for it. An abuser energy, right? An abuser energy that keeps us in confusion, in a haze, in codependency, in suffering, in exhaustion, because that is the level of consciousness that that child had available to it as a strategy, right? It's they created strategies for surviving. So, in order to be able to observe something and see it clearly, you must know yourself beyond that level of energy, period. So you can read about trauma all day. You can read about, and that's useful, right? It's very useful to understand what children of alcoholics, right, those symptoms are, what the symptoms of codependency are, what the symptoms even sometimes of narcissism are. I don't love like labels, and I don't live that way. I don't live labeling people, but it's useful sometimes to, you know, understand that there are certain patterns in consciousness that may be appearing in a certain way, to be able to see them, because they might be so familiar to you. They may have been your parents, right? It might be so familiar to you that it's invisible to you. So to have somebody help you understand what that can look like is very helpful. However, in order to be able to make your shadows visible to you somatically, so that they're no longer moving through you, so that it's no longer your assumption of fear and lack that is moving through you, that is taking action through you, right? In order to stop that movement, in order to stop that epic waste of energy, you need to raise your energy and therefore feel yourself, be consciously aware of yourself as a light being, right? As a light being. So you have to feel your love. You have to feel your love radiating into this world. You have to walk. You have to practice when it's easier and feel your love radiating into the universe, right? Feel yourself as a sun, right? As a source. And because you are the source of your experience, right? And so to meditate upon that in a visual way, like see yourself as the source, and you are radiating. What are you radiating into this reality? Are you radiating a conscious awareness of wholeness and divinity? A way to do that, a very easy way to do that, is to consciously see yourself as the source, right? Literally, perhaps the center is like the unborn or the womb. And then you are radiating right into creation, the love that you are, the freedom that you are, right? So really anchoring these feelings of love and freedom and seeing yourself as a light, and practicing being consciously aware of yourself as light when you are in your everyday life, when you interact with human beings, right? This is what, when you sense something and feel something, it becomes real. It becomes real to you, right? In the same way that your outer senses tell you that this is real, I'm a body, there's space, and there's the body over there, and so the reality is that we're separate, right? You can use your inner senses to remember wholeness, right? Remember the real truth, which is that you are divine intelligence, love, creativity, and freedom. You are free will itself. And so to walk in that energy, I am free will, I am free, I am light, right? To really use your inner faculties to enhance this in your experience, it will make the shadows visible, right? Because when I consciously know myself as free, then it's gonna be real obvious to me when I'm feeling stuck, and actually my actions are coming from a feeling of obligation, a feeling of guilt, a feeling of shame. If I know myself as love, it will become visible to me that I am very much driven by greed and a desire for power over others, or a desire to be seen as the best or the most powerful, the desire to have control over something, right? That will become visible to you if you know yourself beyond that level of energy. So separating yourself from the mind and observing the mind, right, is very useful. It's very useful to understand the mind field and how it works and how it moves, but But the feeling aspect is what's going to take those stubborn fragments that are stubbornly vibrating. Like if you think of your mind as being shattered in a way, which most people's are, imagine like some of this is my gua sha, but like some of your fragments, right? Let's say you got a fragment out here and it's vibrating, right? It's invisible to you, which I'm going to say something else. Don't assume that your subconscious mind is something that's like so mysterious and so invisible to you, because you have a say as to the exact intensity that you add light into your experience. You make these things visible to you, because how else could it be? If I have a level of my mind that's vibrating in an understanding of complete powerlessness, and this piece of my mind is what motivates me to go into power struggles, or to assert my power over someone, or to tease someone sexually, or to dominate someone in a conversation, right? If I experientially know myself as love, then I will see this so freaking clearly, and I will no longer use mental logic to excuse this and say, well, oh no, this is just what I was inspired to say. This was my inspired action. Like, no, this wasn't an inspired action. This action was being inspired from a feeling of powerlessness, right? So if I feel myself as the power of love, and therefore I don't need to have power over another, I simply radiate my divine creativity and intelligence. These parts of you that are vibrating in an understanding of lack and separation and fear and the need to control and manipulate, right? The need to harm, they will become very obvious to you, right? And so use your feeling, use your ability to enhance in your awareness, yourself as a light, your feeling as love, your feeling as love. I mentioned this all the time, but Yogananda said, think of God all the time. And what I believe he meant was like, meditate upon your qualities, right? As being God. And of course, a lot of like non-dual people will be like, but everything's God, and that's God, and that's God, and that killer is God. Yeah, it's all God. It is all God. But as I mentioned, I don't know if it was in this video or another one, the ego has like trouble trying to reconcile like paradox. And it's like, yeah, everything is God, but there's this reality that our fundamental true nature is love and awareness. And God that's in a sleeping state is unconscious and can do harm. But one that is consciously aware of his godhood cannot do harm, right? Cannot do harm, because the only reason why we do harm is because we don't know what we are. Because if we knew what we are, why would we need to source the essence of what we want outside of ourselves? Why would we need to experience power by harming, right? It doesn't compute. It doesn't compute. So meditating upon wholeness, meditating upon yourself as a light. This is what makes the shadows visible. This is what makes it clear to you what is moving through you. And I have compassion for people who suffered big impacts and big traumas and have severe fragmentation, because sometimes there's fragments of the mind that are literally vibrating in such low levels of energy compared to the rest of the personality. And so what is needed, the only thing that can bring fragments back together, the only thing that can reclaim divinity is love, right? The only way to reclaim my wholeness, my conscious awareness of my wholeness, is that I embody the energy of love, right? Not just conceptually, not just mentally, but I literally live as walking, living, embodied, incarnate love. And I feel myself as that, and I walk as that, and I am that. I am that in my feeling, right? Because if I am consciously aware of myself as loving awareness, not only loving awareness, but infinite intelligence, then all that is left is the way that God wants to joyously move through me, as me, right? There's no more going outside of myself, causing trouble, wasting energy. Now I am consciously aware of what I am, and so the energy can build and build and build and transform the physical body, right? transform the mind and the body. So feeling is really the bridge, right? It's not just about observing. Observing is just one dimension of ourselves. We must feel our pain and feel ourselves as whole, both of those things. And that is how we make the shadows visible.